Welcome back, YouTubers. In this Java tutorial, I'm going to demonstrate how if statements work and hopefully teach you how to use them effectively. So let's jump right into it. We'll start off with the syntax. First you need to type the word if, and you notice that our IDE helpfully highlights that for us to show that it is actually a keyword in Java. Then you need to do an open and close parentheses. And within the parentheses, you need to set up a Boolean condition. That is a condition that can evaluate to be either true or false. And then open and close braces are optional, but I recommend them to enhance the readability of your Java code. So let's go back up to our Boolean condition. A Boolean condition can be something like 5 greater than 4. And basically it's something that when mathematically evaluated will come up with a true or false answer. So for example, this 5 greater than 4 condition will evaluate to true. So let's go ahead and put a printout statement in there to show whether or not our Boolean condition evaluated to true or not. So evaluated condition was true. So basically, if the Boolean condition within here evaluates to true, then this code block defined by the open and close brackets, or squiggly brackets, will get executed. So let's go ahead and run our code, and sure enough, the printout statement got printed because this code got executed. Let's go ahead and make this a 3, and this is a Boolean statement that will evaluate to false, and we see that this code block was not executed and it was just skipped over. Next, I'd like to introduce the else statement, or else keyword in Java. Again, our IDE highlights it for us to show that it is a keyword. Let's go ahead and write a printout statement here saying that the else clause was executed. So let's just run it and then we'll walk through what actually happened. Okay, so from the previous time we ran it, we knew this wasn't going to get executed. But what the else does is it says if the if clause above was false and didn't get executed, then execute what is within the else code block. And this code block, again, is defined by the open and closed squiggly brackets. So if we go back and put this to 5, you will see that this code block gets executed, and because this was executed, the else code block is skipped. And sure enough, that's exactly what happened when we ran it. So let's do something slightly more advanced. Let's basically chain a whole bunch of if-else's together. And let's just cut that down to our last code block and copy paste this one into our middle code block and say that the second condition was true, and we'll say the first condition was true. And this is actually backwards. It needs to be else if. Okay, so let's go ahead and run and see what happened. It printed out our hello world and the first code block, but skipped the next two code blocks. What happens when you chain together else if statements, and this could go on, this could be an if else, and else if, and this could be, and there doesn't have to be an else here, for example, and I just wrote true here so that this was acceptable, but I mean you can do 5 greater than 7 or whatever. So you can see how you can put logic in your program to select different code paths to go down depending on values that you're using in these Boolean conditions. Right now, the way we currently have our if and else statements created, it's not really doing anything helpful, but let's go ahead and I guess finish through this example before we continue on. So we want to remove that condition, and let's go ahead and make the first one false and see what happens when we run this. Notice the second condition was true, but the first one wasn't executed and the last one wasn't executed. And lastly, if this is false, then of course our else will get executed, and that is exactly what we see. Okay, so back to what I was saying a second ago. The way we have our if-else chain statement set up right now, it's not very helpful, it's not doing anything fancy, and that's because this will always be executed the same way. But let's use our knowledge from previous examples. So let's make a public static. Let's return a Boolean value. A Boolean value in Java is a primitive type that can have either a true or false value, 0 or 1. And let's name our function rValues equal, and let's pass it two parameters, num1 and num2. And what this function should do is, if num1 is equal to num2, then return true. Else, return false. Okay, so now, for example, I'm going to delete our previous code, and let's go ahead and call that function and print out the result. So let's set up our printout statement, and let's ask rValues, or call the method rValues equal, and let's just pass it 3 and 3. So this should evaluate to true. And what will happen is this method will run whatever's in here with the value for num1 being 3 and the value for num2 being 3, which means that the first block of code within this if statement will be executed because this Boolean conditional will evaluate to true. So this method will return true, and our printout should return true. So let's run it, and sure enough, that's what we see. Let's go ahead and change the values here so that when this gets executed, it will be false, and the reason why it's going to be false is because when the rValues equal method is called with parameters 3 and 4, that means the value of num1 is 3 and the value of num2 is 4. When this if statement is run, it'll test to see if 3 is equal to 4, which is not true, so it will not do this code block, and because the else is here, this method will return false. And so we will get a printout of false. And sure enough, we do. And so that's basically if and if-else statements in a nutshell. If you have any questions, please leave them in the comments section below, and I hope you enjoyed this tutorial.